The return of hope. The skies above Taravos remained empty and silent as they had for generations. The stars glittered coldly, distant and unforgiving to the human colony that clung to survival on this harsh, forgotten world. It had been 157 years since the Galactic Conclave had declared humanity too dangerous to exist among the civilized species of the galaxy. 157 years since Earth had fallen. Commander Elena Reyes walked slowly through the hydroponic facility, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous room where row after row of nutrient tanks stood. Many were struggling, the plants within them yellowing at the edges, a problem that had been growing worse with each passing season. System degradation in sections 14 through 22, reported Dr. Kwan, the colony's lead botanist. His weathered face showed the strain of fighting a losing battle against failing equipment. The nutrient recyclers are operating at 63% efficiency and dropping. Can they be repaired? Elena asked, already knowing the answer. Kwan shook his head. We've cannibalized every spare part 3 times over. The original colonists never meant for this place to last so long. It was supposed to be temporary until... He left the sentence unfinished. Until help came. Until the exile ended. Until someone remembered they existed. As commander of the Taravos colony, Elena carried the burden of 4,523 souls, supposedly the last significant cluster of humans alive in the universe. The other colonies had gone silent decades ago, one by one, until only Taravos maintained its desperate signal into the void, a signal no one was supposed to hear. I'll speak with engineering about prioritizing fabrication resources, Elena said, making a note on her tablet. In the meantime, implement water rationing in the civilian sectors. We'll redirect the difference to the crops. Commander, the civilians are already on minimum sustainable intake. Then we'll all have to do with less than minimum, won't we? She replied evenly. Hunger is uncomfortable. Starvation is fatal. The council chamber was carved from the living rock of Taravos, reinforced with what little construction material remained from the colony ships. 7 faces looked up as Elena entered, each bearing the marks of a hard life lived underground, away from the deadly radiation that bathed the planet's surface. The hydroponic situation is worse than projected, Elena announced without preamble. At current degradation rates, we lose 30% of food production within 6 months. Councillor Zhao, head of resource management, tapped her datapad. We've stretched recycling systems beyond their operational limits. Either we reduce population, or we starve together. A chill ran through the room. The last population adjustment had been 20 years ago. Volunteers who walked into the storms on the surface rather than consume resources the children would need. Elena had been 10 years old then, watching her grandfather leave on his final walk. No, she said firmly. We find another way. We always have. The meeting ended with no solutions, only a heavier weight on Elena's shoulders. She walked through the main colony tunnel, nodding to colonists who saluted as she passed. None of them knew how dire their situation had become, and she intended to keep it that way as long as possible. Fear would only hasten their end. That evening, as Elena sat alone in her quarters reviewing repair schedules, an urgent signal came through her comm. Chief Engineer Torres burst into her quarters without waiting for permission, his eyes wild with excitement. Commander, you need to see this now. Torres was brilliant and steady, not given to exaggeration. If he was this agitated, something momentous had happened. What is it? Elena asked, already rising from her desk. I was doing a deep frequency scan, looking for any usable signals to calibrate the new antenna array, he said, pulling up a display on her wall screen. Look what I found buried in the background radiation. The screen showed a signal pattern, weak but unmistakably artificial. It was using an encryption protocol that Elena recognized from the historical archives. That's an Earth Fleet transmission signature, she whispered, from before the fall. Torres nodded vigorously. It's been repeating for at least 3 days. We only caught it because the new array has better sensitivity. Commander, someone is out there using pre-fall military protocols. Is it a trap? Elena asked, her mind racing through possibilities. The Conclave could be. The Conclave doesn't know our military protocols, Torres interrupted. And they certainly wouldn't use ones this old. This is human, Commander. And it's getting stronger. For the first time in years, Elena felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Hope. She immediately suppressed it. Don't tell anyone yet, she ordered. Not even the council. We need to verify this before we raise expectations. For 3 days, Elena and Torres worked in secret, analyzing the mysterious signal and attempting to pinpoint its origin. On the 4th day, as they were preparing to inform the council, Terevos's early warning system activated. Something had entered their star system. Sensor analyst Dias rushed to her station, fingers flying over the controls. Her face, reflected in the blue light of her screen, transformed from concentration to disbelief. It can't be, she whispered. What is it? Elena demanded, moving quickly to her side. Unknown vessel approaching, Dias said, her voice trembling. She looked up, eyes wide. Commander, it bears human signatures. The engine configuration, the communication protocols, they're ours. The control room fell silent as the implications sank in. After generations alone in the darkness, after believing they were the last of their kind, a ship was approaching. A human ship. Alert the council, Elena said quietly, and prepare the emergency protocols we never thought we'd use. As she stared at the blinking light on the sensor display, Elena understood that everything was about to change. The long silence of humanity's exile was ending, and it had started with the arrival of one warship. The UES Defiance broke through Terevos's cloud cover like a phantom from the past, its massive hull gleaming darkly in the pale sunlight. Battle scars were clearly visible across its surface. This was no pristine vessel preserved in some hidden dock. This ship had seen combat. The colonists gathered at the designated meeting area, staring up with a mixture of fear and wonder. None of them had ever seen a starship before. Such things existed only in the stories passed down through generations. Elena stood at the front of the crowd, her face carefully neutral despite her racing heart. The colony's small security force flanked her, their makeshift weapons pointless against the warship hovering above them. It's actually landing, whispered Counselor Joe beside her. After all these years, the Defiance settled onto the flat plain with surprising grace for such a massive vessel. It towered over the assembled colonists, its shadow cooling the air around them. For long minutes, nothing happened. Then, with a pneumatic hiss, a ramp extended from the ship's belly. 4 figures descended. They wore uniforms unlike anything the colonists had ever seen, sleek, dark materials with insignias that belonged to a military that hadn't existed for more than a century. 3 carried weapons at their sides. The 4th, who walked slightly ahead, was unarmed. That's their captain, Torres murmured, squinting to see better. The visitors stopped 10 meters from Elena. The leader stepped forward, removing his helmet. His face was weathered but not old, with alert eyes that assessed everything around him. I am Captain Marcus Chen of the United Earth Ship Defiance, he announced, his voice carrying easily across the distance. We come in peace to Terevos colony. A murmur ran through the crowd. How did these strangers know the name of their home? Elena stepped forward. I am Commander Elena Reyes. Welcome to Terevos. She paused, then added what everyone was thinking. We didn't know any other humans survived beyond our colony. The captain's face showed a hint of a smile. We've been looking for you for a very long time. The initial meeting moved to the colony's council chamber. Captain Chen brought only one officer with him, a woman named Lieutenant Naomi Kagawa, who served as his tactical officer. The colonists could not stop staring at their visitors, at the crisp uniforms, and the confident way they carried themselves. Your colony was one of the last to maintain an active beacon, Captain Chen explained, accepting a cup of Terevos's bitter tea. We've been searching systematically, picking up traces of human outposts. Yours is the fifth colony we've confirmed. There are 4 other colonies, Counselor Zhao asked, her voice cracking with emotion. That we've contacted so far, Lieutenant Kagawa replied. Some were abandoned. Some have thrived, like yours. Elena leaned forward. But how is this possible? Earth fell 157 years ago. You should be. She hesitated. Dead. Marcus finished for her. My crew and I entered stasis shortly after Earth's defense collapsed. The Defiance was part of the last battle group when the war was lost. When it became clear Earth would fall, Admiral Yamamoto ordered a handful of ships to escape and preserve what remained of humanity. We've been awake for only 5 years, Kagawa added, searching for survivors since we emerged from stasis. How did you avoid detection for so long? Elena asked. The Conclave patrols were everywhere in the early years. We lost contact with the other colonies because any transmission brought their ships. Captain Chen exchanged a look with Kagawa before answering. The Defiance carries experimental technology that was being developed when the war began. We can mask our signature, appear as space debris or natural phenomena to most scanning systems. He placed a small device on the table. It projected a holographic map of the galaxy with several points highlighted. We've gathered intelligence suggesting other human settlements survived here, and here, he said, indicating bright spots. But more importantly, we've discovered something about our history that changes everything. The room grew quiet. The story we were told about why humanity was exiled. It's built on lies, Marcus said flatly. Humanity wasn't exiled because we were deemed dangerous to galactic peace. That was the cover story. Elena frowned. What's the truth then? We had developed technology that threatened certain powerful factions within the Conclave, Kagawa explained. Specifically, quantum communications that didn't rely on their controlled networks. Information control is how they maintain power over the lesser species. We were making that impossible. So they eliminated us, Marcus continued, not because we were violent, but because we were about to make them irrelevant. Torres, who had been silent until now, spoke up. But our historical archives say we attacked them first. Fabricated, Kagawa said firmly. A false flag operation to justify their response. We have proof. Elena stood and walked to the window, looking out at the colonists who had gathered around the Defiance, still marveling at its presence. What do you want from us? She asked without turning around. We need people, Marcus said simply. Engineers, scientists, anyone willing to join us. The Defiance was designed for a crew of 200. We have 43. Join you for what? Counselor Zhao demanded. Captain Chen's eyes hardened. To find the rest of humanity. To tell them the truth. And eventually, to reclaim what was taken from us. Elena turned back to face him. You're talking about war. I'm talking about justice, Marcus replied. And about survival. The Conclave won't leave any of us alone forever. They've simply been taking their time, believing we're no threats scattered across the stars. We have 48 hours, Kagawa added. Then we must leave, with or without volunteers. Elena looked at the council members, seeing their fear, their hope, and their uncertainty mirroring her own. The warship had brought more than just visitors. It had brought a choice that would change their world forever. The awakening of power. 72 colonists from Taravos volunteered to join the Defiance's crew. Elena watched the preparations from the colony's command center, still uncertain if she had made the right choice in allowing them to go. Dr. Kwan was among them, along with 15 other essential personnel whose loss would be keenly felt. They're taking our best people, Counselor Zhao complained, standing beside her. They're taking volunteers who believe in something greater than mere survival, Elena corrected. She had declined Captain Chen's invitation to join them. Her responsibility was to Taravos, to the thousands who would remain behind. Torres burst into the command center, his face flushed with excitement. Commander, you need to see this. Elena followed him to his workstation, where Captain Chen and Lieutenant Kagawa were already waiting. The engineer screens displayed strange readings from deep scans of Taravos' crust. "What am I looking at?" Elena asked. "Power signatures," Torres explained. "Massive ones, buried at least 3 kilometers beneath the surface. They weren't active until the Defiance landed, but something about their drive systems seems to have triggered a response." Captain Chen leaned closer to the display. "Those energy patterns, they're consistent with pre-fall Earth technology, advanced military installations." "That's impossible," Elena said. "The original colonists were refugees, not military personnel. This was a civilian settlement." Kagawa exchanged a glance with her captain. "Are you certain about that, Commander? Have you ever seen the original colony charter?" Elena hesitated. The earliest records were fragmentary at best, passed down through generations of increasingly desperate survival. "You think Taravos was more than just a refugee outpost?" she asked. Marcus nodded slowly. "In the final days before Earth fell, certain contingency plans were enacted. Key personnel, technologies, and resources were evacuated to specifically chosen worlds. Some for preservation, others for retaliation. You believe Taravos is one of those installations, a weapon, or something equally valuable," Kagawa suggested. "The question is, how do we access it?" The answer came sooner than expected. As they debated, an alarm sounded throughout the colony. Sensor Analyst Diaz's voice came over the communication system, tight with tension. "Commander, we have an unidentified ship entering the system. Configuration matches known Conclave patrol vessels." The command center erupted into controlled chaos as colonists rushed to emergency stations. Captain Chen and Lieutenant Kagawa were already moving toward the exit. "We need to get back to the Defiance," Marcus said grimly. "If the Conclave finds us here, they'll sterilize this entire colony." "Wait," Torres called, pointing to his display. "The energy readings are changing. Whatever's down there, it's activating further." Elena made a swift decision. "Captain, get your ship ready to defend this colony if necessary. Torres, take me to these energy signatures. We need to know what we're dealing with." Deep beneath the colony's main level, Elena and Torres followed increasingly strong energy readings through tunnels that hadn't been accessed in generations. Dust covered everything, but the path was clear. These passages had been designed for easy access when needed. "These tunnels don't appear on any of our surveys," Torres marveled, scanning the reinforced walls with his equipment. "They've been here all along, shielded somehow from our sensors." They reached a massive door that looked newly fabricated despite its obvious age. As Elena approached, lights activated along its frame, and a scanning beam swept over her. "DNA verification complete," announced a synthetic voice that made them both jump. "Command authority rexiogenize it. Welcome, Director. Elena stared at Torres in shock. "Director Reyes, my family has been on Taravos for 5 generations, but we were always colonists, not directors of anything." The door slid open silently, revealing a vast chamber filled with technology far beyond anything the colony possessed. Holographic displays sprang to life as they entered, showing status reports and system diagnostics for equipment Elena couldn't begin to identify. "This is Earth Fleet technology," Torres whispered, running his fingers reverently over a console. "Not just any fleet tech. This is from the Advanced Defense Division. My grandfather used to tell stories. Facility activation sequence initiated," the synthetic voice announced. "Planetary defense systems coming online. Threat assessment in progress." Elena's communicator activated. "Commander," it was Diaz from the command center. "Something's happening all across the planet. Energy spikes everywhere, and there's something emerging from the ground in the northern mountains." On the central display of the underground facility, Elena watched as massive structures rose from hidden bunkers across Taravos' surface. Weapon platforms, communication arrays, and what appeared to be launch facilities for vessels far larger than anything the colony had ever possessed. Taravos was never just a colony, she realized. It was a forward operating base disguised as a civilian settlement. And apparently, Torres added, examining the facility records now accessible through the activated systems, your family line was placed in command for a reason. The Reyes bloodline carries specific genetic markers that allow access to these systems. Elena's communicator activated again, this time with Captain Chen's voice. Commander Reyes, the Conclave vessel is on an intercept course with the Defiance. We're powering weapons systems, but whatever you've activated down there has their complete attention. On the display, Elena could see the Conclave ship, sleek, organic curves contrasting with the angular human designs of the Defiance. It was larger, more heavily armed, and undoubtedly carried a full crew complement. Can you defeat it? She asked. Not in a direct confrontation. Marcus replied honestly. We're outgunned and undermanned. Elena studied the controls before her, understanding flowing into her mind as if she had trained on this equipment her entire life. Perhaps, in a way, she had been prepared for this moment through generations of genetic memory and subtle conditioning. Captain Chen, hold position, she ordered. Let me see what we have to work with here. With Torres's help, Elena activated the planetary defense grid. Targeting systems came online, locking onto the Conclave vessel with precision that spoke of ancient but superior technology. Conclave vessel is hailing us, reported Lieutenant Kagawa through the communicator. Let me hear it, Elena requested. A cold, modulated voice filled the underground chamber. Human vessels, you are in violation of the exile decree. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. This colony will be purged as per Conclave directive. Elena exchanged glances with Torres, then tapped a command sequence into the console. This is Commander Elena Reyes of Taravos Colony to Conclave vessel. We recognize no authority from those who built their peace on genocide. Withdraw from this system immediately. You have no standing to make demands, exile, the Conclave commander replied. Your existence is merely an oversight we are correcting. Actually, Elena said, feeling the surge of fierce pride as targeting solutions solidified on her display, I think you'll find we have significant standing. With a series of commands, she activated the defense platforms. Beams of concentrated energy lanced from the surface of Taravos, striking the Conclave vessel with surgical precision. Rather than destroying it outright, the weapons systematically disabled its propulsion and weapon systems, leaving life support intact. By the stars, Torres breathed. These aren't just weapons, they're precision instruments. Elena opened the channel again. Conclave vessel, you are now disabled in Taravos space. Your crew will survive if you comply with the following terms. Transmit all data in your ship's memory banks to the coordinates I'm sending, then prepare to receive boarding parties. The silence stretched for long moments before the Conclave commander responded, their voice now tinged with disbelief. How is this possible? Taravos was catalogued as a minimal threat settlement. A deliberate miscalculation on your part, Elena replied. Captain Chen, the vessel is disabled. Your crew can board safely. 6 hours later, Elena met with Captain Chen and Lieutenant Kagawa in the underground facility. The Conclave ship had yielded valuable intelligence, star charts, patrol schedules, and most importantly, communications revealing factions within the Conclave itself. These transmissions confirm what we suspected, Marcus said, reviewing the data. The exile decree wasn't unanimous. At least 3 major species within the Conclave opposed humanity's punishment, but were overruled by the dominant factions. And they still oppose it, Kagawa added. There's an underground movement called the Restoration Alliance. They've been working for decades to overturn the decree, arguing that humanity's elimination was both unjust and illegal under Conclave law. Elena studied the facility's main display, which now showed the full extent of Taravos's hidden capabilities. The planet wasn't just a military base. It was a cornerstone of what should have been humanity's defense network, designed to be activated in exactly this kind of scenario. Taravos was meant to be awakened, she said softly, not just to defend itself, but to serve as a rallying point. She turned to Captain Chen. Your mission just became more critical. You need to reach the other colonies. Tell them what we've discovered here. And what about Taravos? Marcus asked. Now that the Conclave knows this place exists, they'll send more ships. Alina's lips curved into a determined smile. Let them come. We've been hiding in fear for generations. Now we have the means to stand our ground. Torres, who had been analyzing the facility's capabilities, looked up from his console. Commander, there's something else you should see. The facility isn't just a defensive installation. It's a shipyard. He brought up schematics on the main display, showing massive construction bays hidden beneath Taravos' northern mountains. There are partial builds of warships down there, he continued. Not completed, but with the right resources and expertise, we could finish them. Resources we don't have, Alina pointed out. Knowledge we've lost over generations, but which could be recovered, Marcus suggested. If we combine efforts between colonies, share what each has preserved. Lieutenant Kagawa was already calculating. With the Conclave patrol schedules we've acquired, the Defiance could move between known human settlements without detection. We could create a network, re-establish communication, coordinate resources. A resistance, Alina said, the word feeling both strange and right on her tongue. More than that, Marcus corrected. A reclamation. As dawn broke over Taravos the next day, the Defiance prepared for departure. 112 colonists now stood ready to board. A significant increase from the original volunteers, but still a manageable loss for the colony's population. Alina stood beside the ship's boarding ramp, saying farewell to Torres, who had insisted on joining the mission despite her attempts to keep him on Taravos. You need me here, Commander, he argued. Which is precisely why you should stay, she countered. He shook his head. The facility's systems are largely automated now that they're activated. Your engineering team can manage them with the tutorials I've prepared. But out there, he gestured to the sky, they need someone who understands what we've discovered here, who can help integrate Taravos' technology with what other colonies might have preserved. Alina reluctantly conceded the point. Just make sure you come back, preferably with reinforcements. Captain Chen approached, extending his hand to Alina. Commander Reyes, history will remember this day. She clasped his hand firmly. Make sure it's remembered for the right reasons, Captain. Find our people, tell them the truth, and then bring them home. You consider Taravos home now? He asked with slight surprise, even knowing what it really is. Alina looked around at the colony, at the people watching the departure with a mixture of hope and trepidation, at the defense platforms now visible on distant hillsides, at the sky that no longer represented only danger. Taravos was built to be a fortress, she said, but we made it a home. Now it can be both, a safe harbor for humanity's return. As the Defiance lifted into the morning sky, its engines flaring bright against the clouds, Alina felt the weight of command settle differently on her shoulders. For generations, her family had led the colony in a desperate struggle to simply exist. Now, they would fight for humanity's right to thrive among the stars once more. The Defiance disappeared into the upper atmosphere, becoming a brief flash of light as it engaged its main drives. Alina activated her communicator. This is Director Rice to all colony stations. Begin Phase 1 of the Awakening Protocol. Taravos is no longer hiding. Across the planet, systems that had lain dormant for over a century continued their activation sequences. Sensors expanded their reach, monitoring the space around Taravos for any approaching threat. Deep beneath the mountains, fabrication systems began processing raw materials, preparing for the construction that would soon begin. And from the colony, for the first time in generations, a signal was deliberately broadcast into space. Not a weak plea for rescue, but a strong, clear message meant for human ears across the galaxy. To all human colonies, Taravos stands revealed. The exile ends. It's time to come home. Humanity's long night of exile was ending, awakened by the arrival of one warship and the courage to fight back, rather than simply survive. The stars would belong to them once more.